Hi everyone, my name is Christa of Practical Astros, and I'm here with my friend Mariya. Hi Mariya, how you doing?
Hi, so happy to see you, happy to be here. Thank you
Yeah,
for the invitation.
of course. I met Mariya on Instagram, and she's an astrologer. And we talked a few months ago about recording a self-care episode on just self-care for astrologers. I did one previously with Whitney Kranz, and we talked about just like taking care of the body as an astrologer. But Mariya and I, when we chatted earlier, we were talking more about other ways to take care of yourself. So that's what the episode is going to be about, just talking about all the different ways of running your own business and the mechanics of that and the stress in that and lots of other things. But before we start, this is Mariya's gorgeous website. And I will invite Mariya to kind of give the audience a little bit of a bio. Who are you as an astrologer? Where are you calling into from on Earth? And what do you do outside of astrology?
Thank you so much, and thanks for everybody listening to this episode. I also watched your previous conversation. This is why I answered your request on Blue Sky. And it was really amazing because it's a topic we don't usually talk about. And probably it's in many fields also, not only in astrology, but I think for us is as a mercurial and Saturnian topic, it's really more stressful.
Yeah, yeah.
At some point. I am from Bulgaria, and where I'm calling from here, I live on the Black Sea coast in a very small city. It's called Burgas, if anybody wants to search it. We just got famous last week because the Giro d'Italia, which is the second biggest cycling competition on the planet, started from
Oh,
my
wow.
hometown.
Wow, that's
Yes,
amazing.
so everything, their main color of the competition is magenta pink. So I dyed my hair for the
Ah,
Giro.
nice, nice.
So if anybody wants to see how it looks like, you can check also the Giro d'Italia pictures and videos. But it's a country that was part of the Soviet Union. So we're part of the 1989 Saturn Neptune
Oh, yes.
conjunctions and
Yeah, yeah.
revolutions and so on. I've been an astrologer for like a professional astrologer probably since 2021, but I've been doing astrology since I was 13. And I started as a modern psychological astrologer just because this was the main way you can get into astrology in Bulgaria during this time. And even more recently, also, the traditional astrology school is not that popular here. So I started learning with Chris Brennan first. I finished his Hellenistic course, then his horary course with Rob Bailey. And also I studied with Austin Kopok, his year 3. And also I'm a big follower of Dr. Ali Ulomi on Patreon, and
Yeah,
I
yeah.
really implement all of his translations and work in my daily life, but also in my practice.
Wow.
So,
You've gotten like a nice broad spectrum of like the best astrologers out there. Like even
oh,
just like Rob Bailey for horary is just phenomenal. Like he is
phenomenal.
phenomenal.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly, and they're all really nice people, very strict and not exactly demanding, but in the good way, making you really go for the best of you to work more on your practice and ethics and how you do astrology on a daily basis. So it's really amazing feeling to have them as teachers.
Yeah, and all of those, it kind of, there's a through line of professionalism. And what you
Mm,
said earlier is like, we don't have this conversation within the astrological community as a business community about self-care. And I think it speaks also just to, how seriously do we take our own selves of running a business as astrologers? I think that as the astrology world continues as a practice and as like a business in a capitalist system, there is a professionalism of ethics and boundaries, and self-care is included with that. So I think that it's telling that we don't have the conversation about self-care a lot because we don't take ourselves very seriously often, or we keep it hidden. Like both you and I kind of kept our
mm,
own astrological interest hidden from for our own reasons, but it's not a profession that is just welcomed And so because other people don't take it like seriously or professionally, often we don't either, even on a subconscious level. So I think
Yeah.
that just openly talking about things like self-care or the financial piece of astrology kind of helps bring the profession of astrologers back into a mainstream appreciation, at least. I don't think that we'll fix the all of the insults or the like the eye rolling response that you would get from astrologers in our lifetime, but like the little bits of just treating ourselves as professionals, treating our clients professionally, treating our colleagues professionally, which includes self-care practice, is a part of bringing it into a professional light. So
Yeah. Also, it's really funny how it's both very niche but also very mainstream
yeah,
profession. And if you talk with people who are into any esoterics or occult or spiritual practice, for them it's quite normal, and they really appreciate you for what you do. And the mainstream, even if they like throw their eyes on astrology from even some of the big fashion brands created a series for their clothing or jewelry with astrological symbols and anything that is more occult, because it's a huge trend now. And if you say to any of them that you're an astrologer, and they're like, that's strange, so having these double standards,
yeah,
like I like this as a symbol, but I don't want to get into it because it's
right.
too, yeah, risky.
Yeah, I like
So
the
we got,
symbol, but no meaning behind the symbol, please. Yeah,
yeah, yeah,
yeah.
it's too much for them. They are scared probably
Mm.
that somebody else will think something silly of them. And this is where the ethics actually comes, because we need to be equipped to talk about astrology the way it actually is for us. I mean, even both of us, but anybody else who is structured in their learning and devoted their time. And this devotion is actually part of the self-care also, I think,
Yeah.
because you spend so much time investing in your own education, in your own spiritual practice, in your own even life decisions that you make on a daily basis. Should I work after 9 p.m. because I have something really pressing to do? Or should I do something else? Or do I do another job while I'm also an astrologer? Because we know that this is the way of many people. I also work two other jobs in my life. And my astrology practice, even though it's one of the main things that I do, it's still, I sometimes when I meet people and they're like, do you have a degree, and or what are you doing in your life? And I'm an urban planner because I have 3 master's degree in urban planning, and it sounds so much more I don't know, like of a high status and
Yeah.
value for
Mhm.
everybody else because you invested so much. But as I think about it, I invested so much more time in my astrology practice,
Yeah.
in learning and in reading books, and I spend my spare time reading about astrology and technical books, history books, whatever,
Hmm.
more than the urban planning, like if I compare the time periods in my
Yeah,
life.
yeah. Well, it goes into that sense of value. Like you have
Mm.
valued your time to get master's degrees, plural, but then
Mm.
you've also invested your time developing a practice that doesn't have like a standardized way of learning. Like there are
Mm.
really great schools like that. All of the translations, that Ali Alomi puts on his Patreon for really cheap. Like if you subscribe to his Patreon, you get access to so many incredible techniques. Like
Absolutely.
it's worth way more than what he charges. But you have to learn it and integrate it. It's like it's there, but you have to engage, and that takes a lot of time. You have to learn how to negotiate and price your time, because time is money. Time is your attention and your bandwidth. I think with Uranus and Gemini, that's going to be more of the conversation, is like not what we spend our financial dollars on, but what are we spending our attention on? Because that is the most valuable resource. There's all the information available, and how do you discern what you're going to be spending your time on? But going back to like the master's degrees, it's respectable. You're like, oh, you have a master's
Mm.
degree, then I know how to process and value that time that you have spent, and then someone in an accredited school has approved of the time you have spent, that it's been quality time, that you've learned enough to be able to receive this degree of completion. But we don't necessarily value astrology in the broader world. And so even if you say, oh, I'm an astrologer with decades of experience, that doesn't matter to them, to a lot of
Yeah.
people, not to everybody. But it's like, it's not such an easy, a, a, a social agreement that we would appreciate someone's dedication, spending all of their free time or thinking about things in an astrological lens, or looking at, world events in the
Mm.
past and world history, and seeing these cycles that we repeat in different ways, but it's just not necessarily valued as much, which is kind of a testament to continuing to study astrology. Because like people don't really care that I do this. People will laugh at me or roll their eyes. Maybe some of them will then be curious, but for the most part, it's like a 50-50 split to still study it, regardless of the ridicule that you may receive.
Mm.
So when did you start studying? You said you were 13, and how did that begin? Like, what was your introduction to learning astrology?
Yeah, I started, I was 13 in 2002. So I was in high school and I was really asking all of my um schoolmates what their sun sign is. And I started taking notes in my head about everybody's sun sign and started observing. And at some point, I found astro.com, obviously, like probably everybody
Yeah,
nowadays, or
yeah,
not at that time.
yeah.
So I started looking at charts, and at first I only, because I didn't have any knowledge, all the books here were didn't show you the technicalities of astrology, more like this cookbook things, like you have the sun in Taurus, so this means that. And I started reading some of the Linda Goodman stuff because this was very popular. Also here we had it translated, but we had also a lot of Russian literature. They have a big school in astrology, which is of course another type of astrological knowledge that you can get, but I was not feeling it like it works for me, because I started looking my chart in AstroSeek and my friends in Placidus at first, and until recently, until I started listening to the astrology podcast and studying with Chris, I never heard about whole sign houses, so then it made so much more sense. But while in high school and reading those books, I just kept this huge database in my head about everybody's birthdays. And then when I continued doing it, I had some spiritual things happen to me, which my parents were really scared of. And they were, oh no, this is crazy. You gotta stop thinking about this. You're not hearing those things. But now I know it's something that a lot of people have when they're young. I had strange dreams, reoccurring dreams with that absolutely same structure and information in them. And it was a really strange thing that my parents were like kind of locked me in this position then to not share what I experienced. So I had to refocus on something else. And through friends and everybody else in school, I decided that urban planning is much more convenient, so I can be accepted even by my own family. So this continued for a lot of years until I came back in 2020 and 2019, exactly, to the astrology podcast and started my traditional journey from there on. But just what you mentioned about Uranus in Gemini, and do you mention when we record, just for the history of things?
Yeah, yeah. It's Wednesday, May 13th, 9:22 a.m. Eastern. So Uranus and Gemini is very early on. Like the moon is um, the moon is at 7 degrees Aries, so that's that. And Uranus is 0 degrees, 59 minutes Gemini. So it is
Yes,
very, very
very
early
early.
on. Yeah.
Exactly. So what I was going to say about it, like thinking about how people appreciate or don't appreciate the profession of astrology, is like every time I see somebody investing their time,
Mm,
no matter in what, it's just this person is so devoted to this thing that
mm,
you just gotta appreciate them for spending their whole free time and energy into this. It doesn't matter if it looks stupid to you or not. So we get this eye rolling just because of conditioning of capitalism and so on, and not as you said, somebody will be interested, others will roll their eyes. But even if you get only one person interested in this, I think it's a big win. Just
Yeah.
because, if you work in NGOs and social work and whatever, every time you present a project or any idea that you have, usually in a room of 50 people, not everybody feel inspired by what you say, but even if there is one person, they then catch this vibe, and maybe they start learning something, and they say it to somebody else, and this is how we just I imagine it as a spider web. We
Yeah.
just make these connections between each other, and this is how I feel actually in the astrological community, because I have very few colleagues here that I communicate with. More of the people that I know are from the States because of my teachers, obviously.
Yeah.
So spending time also for me means that I have to be in another time zone.
Mm-hmm.
I am in another time zone than you, and if I want to catch up with news and chat with people or go to their live meetings and so on, I have to be awake at 3 a.m.
Right.
So this is
Yeah.
not very good for self-care. If you
Yeah,
want to
maybe
sleep,
every once in a while I'll have the 3 a.m. Zoom call. Yeah,
absolutely.
I'm at a part of a cohort now, and one of or two of the people are in Kuala Lumpur, which is exactly 12 hours away from me. And so when we've had meetings, it's been like 10 a.m. my time, 10 p.m. their time, and it's just like the efforts that we'll go through to make that connection. But like you said, like if you're in a room of 50 people and you connect with one person, it's not like that one person. I mean, it sounds very cult-like because we're like, if
Mm,
they get it, right? But it's like that
mm,
one person, if they get a little bit of that dose of
spark.
excitement and the endless rabbit holes and the curiosity and what did it to, if they get kind of grabbed by that astrology bug, as someone who has been grabbed by the astrology book for a long time, I'm like, you have the rest of your life to just enjoy this and have fun and be curious. Astrology keeps me so curious. And to me, that is like inspiring for each day. And so it's like if you can connect with one person with this kind of curiosity, it's like if you read a really great book and you can only read that great book for the first time once, and like that process of discovering what happens to those characters, and then you see someone else, they're like, oh, I just picked up this book, I haven't read it before, and you're like, I wish I could read that book for the first time again because it's so exciting. That's what astrology can feel like. Of like, oh, you've never
Absolutely.
heard of perfection years? Like that is great. Like you can't wait for you to just dive into that for the next like 2 to 3 years as you look back on all of your past birthdays and see like all of the ways that you've kind of gone through your chart. So it is different than like just a lot of other industries. And I think because it requires each individual person to do self-reflection. And I think that's where people get turned off because there's a lot of practice to not self-reflect. I
Mm.
don't know if you've had this experience, but I've had clients that want to get their partners or their children readings. They want to give them a gift certificate or buy them a reading. And I'm very reticent to do it. And I always explain to them, like, okay, if they don't want it, the reading becomes yours after 90 days. Just because you like to hear about yourself or reflect about yourself or consider these options, not everybody does self-reflection. Some people are scared to know. Some
Mm.
people are not interested to know. And you can't really tell on the front end of who is really going to enjoy that or not. Just because I might really like a reading doesn't mean that my husband would really like a reading. And so I've just found that finding like a really enthusiastic client that wants to share this inspiration with their family, for the most part, their family is not interested in doing it. Maybe one or person.
Maybe.
But I think because it requires a lot of self-reflection and not everybody's there, maybe people get there eventually or they're just not in the headspace for it. But when they think about an astrology chart reading, they think about being exposed or seen. And some people just aren't really interested in that, at least
Mm.
for, at certain points in their life.
Mm.
Have you had that experience before with like the kind of having the enthusiastic bug, but not everybody catching it?
Yeah, it happens a lot with everything that you really like and get excited about. Not everybody is on your track at the same time, but also I think that mentioning that we're going to talk about therapy, what you said about self reflection. I don't know if everybody has it since they're kids. We both know that depending on their birth chart, they might get interested into themselves early on or
Yeah,
later, or they're born very deep and self reflective, and they show it from a very young age. But therapy for me is something like that. I think that just being helpful to clients who want to know about themselves more, it's me investing in my research in, as you mentioned, you look at your own chart based on every technique that you learn for many, many days and months and years. And this is also investment of time because you don't do it while you meet clients, you know,
right. Yeah,
you do it for spare time or spare time working hours, just so you can be sure that what you're going to say to them, it's not going to be bunkers
yeah,
or fake or just um, I know that intuition exists because I use mine every day and every second, but it's not like intuitive reading based on no techniques, you know.
right, right. That's just
So
vibes. Yeah,
yeah, exactly. You just you if you want to trust your intuition, you have to put your so much work in it. And I always give this example of how did Picasso became such a famous artist for such an abstract way of painting. I don't know if you have seen his earliest works, but he has graphics of ballerinas, which are so anatomical and gentle, and you have to be a really good painter just anatomically, so you can develop your own style, even if it's abstract.
yeah,
And this is definitely the same with astrology. You got to learn the basics, and this needs a lot of time, a lot of money, a lot of investment, and definitely working on yourself because you cannot hold the space for everybody else if you don't hold it for yourself, if you don't know how you can listen to people, to hear what they say impartially, and also then give them any not exactly advice because we're more like therapists, you know. You ask questions, you give them the reflection of the mirror and make them ask themselves questions. So this is the investment that we do by books, by courses, by spare time of experimenting and going back, by paying to our therapists, you know. So it's I don't say that any other job is not connected to investing money in it, but you also spend your money in your free time and
yeah,
energy just to
yeah,
develop this sense of when you look at the chart. And I'm absolutely sure that every young astrologer recognizes this. But the first time I see a chart, and I'm like, where should I start? Okay, I'm doing
mm-hmm.
like 5 million times at the 5 million things at the same time until you develop this way of discerning where do I start first,
Yeah,
which is shortening your time for preparation, but this is
mm-hmm.
based on consistent knowledge and
Yeah.
experience. So this is why things also are costly, you know. Consultations might be 1 hour, but sometimes I spend a day on a chart, depending on the situation or what you want to say to the client and so on.
Yeah, and depends on what jumps off the chart. You know, like you said, I remember making this meme for my astrology group chat when I was early on in the studies, and it was just like a guy with a trench coat, you know, open, you know,
Yeah.
of having a bunch of watches, but I put like 100 charts. I'm like, do you want to see some charts? Because when you're early on, you're kind of like, let me see the chart. I want to see the chart. And you haven't really developed like the ethics of, do I have permission to really look at this chart? Has
Mm.
this person given me the permission? That changes. But I remember the excitement of like, ooh, let's look at the chart. So can we talk about therapy? Because there are other professions where you find yourself, hairdressers, like the first one I think of, like hairdressers act as therapists for a lot.
Bartenders also.
Bartenders, yes, yeah. And so, but in an astrology context, people often want that sort of therapy session. And unless you're, a trained therapist, you have to
Mm.
be really careful about, like, I'm not qualified to answer that question. Like, if you don't know how to answer the question, tell them, I don't feel like I can answer that question for you. You need to seek whoever it is, medical, financial, or if it goes into the realm of more of a therapeutic, a licensed therapist. And that line is very nuanced,
Mm.
because you have to say, like, I'm speaking from looking at the astrological patterns in your own birth chart and then what's happening. And it can mean a lot of different things. It does not mean that you should divorce your spouse, but it can mean a
Absolutely.
lot of things that is also included. And so just using your words very carefully, you have to speak like a therapist. So getting training, like counseling astrology courses, are highly, highly, highly recommended, because you have to be aware of the separation between you and the client. And that goes into the self-care of not taking on your client's trauma, emotions, baggage, all of that stuff. Which, when I talked with Whitney a few months ago about self-care, a lot of that was like boundaries and protection and cleansing and all. But therapy for your, as a human, getting therapy yourself as a practitioner, but then also just encouraging therapy for those clients that, I mean, really everyone can use it. But there are some where you're like, you really should seek therapy for this, because this is a very tender situation just for your own self growth and protection, So, with all of that, like, what's your argument to other astrologers, when 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 we talk just about therapy in general for ourselves and our clients?
Well, a lot of the people that I know, even in Bulgaria, who are into astrology, even like not like professional, but also as a hobby or a side hustle. Or maybe I'm just in this balloon of people who go to therapy,
Yeah,
which is
yeah.
also very, comforting to know, just because we support each other and nobody thinks you're crazy.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that talking with people about, as you said, holding um, saying the right words, not being too pushy, but also giving your opinion based on only the astrology. It's a thing that people should start doing more. What I've seen a lot is, if you have some difficult placement that is reconfirmed by other placements in the chart, and they say that there is a trauma, and usually the client says it out loud in front of you if they feel safe, in the talking to you, and you don't push the client. They just open up during the conversation, and if you feel it's appropriate, you can always say that this is a thing that is more easily untangled by a professional therapist.
That's a great way to
And
phrase it.
I always imagine it as a knot, because what I see mostly, and also based on my experience with my therapist, on my personality and life, is a lot of the things that we have as a trauma, even if it's some fear or whatever happened in your life, it's shown in your chart, and it blocks you from something else. And people come with so many different questions, like, I want to get this job. I'm so into arts, but I'm in a corporate environment. And how do I go there? And you see this in the chart. But usually it's some restriction that comes from mom, dad, family lineage, high school education that was, you had a really bad teacher in arts and they hated you, or whatever the reason. And just as I said, untying this knot with a therapist will unleash all the energy that you've been holding on for so many years trapped inside of you. So we just try to point their attention to something that is visible for us with our instrumentarium and techniques, and then they can go and work on it if they want.
Yeah, yeah, that's great advice. Just being able to recognize it, because sometimes just affirming to the client, like, I see this in your astrology too. Like, that is, like, I'm sorry that that's happened to you. Having compassion for them and say, I think that this requires a lot more deep work, and that you carry it onto in a professional realm, so that you can kind of move through this. But just being seen, I think,
Mm.
like, what when we wonder, like, why do people come to astrology, outside of it being like enticing and fun and mysterious and playful and curious and fascinating and all of these things, but why do clients come to astrology? They want to be seen. They want to be
Mm.
heard. They want to feel connected. They want to feel like there's some sort of order to the cosmos that they are also a part of. And I think that astrology providing that is enough. It doesn't have to solve the problem or give them like, because of these placements, this is what you should do. Again, unless you're a really good trained therapist, because there are plenty of poorly trained therapists. Unless you're a really good trained therapist, don't give that sort of advice unless you were called to and you were qualified to. And as a consulting astrologer, you want to help people too. You really don't want them to be suffering or be blocked. You want to see that progression of the chart move, and you want that oxygen and that blood flow to move, but also knowing where your limits are and what they've asked you. I've given a lot of readings that felt like I was rectifying previously poor astrology readings for clients, that they had really bad astrologers or just really overly confident astrologers with bad information. A lot of people that I've read for had, like, I don't know what it is about Chiron, but there was like a generation of astrologers that were just so hung up on Chiron, and like they would read someone's Chiron placement and almost like provide baggage around someone's Chiron placement. And it could be speak to my own astrology. I have Chiron on my descendant. And so it's like that those Chiron wounded people were coming to me being like, my Chiron is like dooming my chart. And it's like, no, it's not. Like, who told you that? I'm so sorry. Let's start over and let's talk about your entire chart that includes Chiron, because Chiron's a great teacher. So it's just recognizing like the knowledge that you have, that you're called to, that you're qualified to share, and be okay with like your own limits. Because I think when you limit yourself with your own qualifications and know where you should not be speaking, that is, you're not overstepping, you're not causing harm, which is, a big thing. And therapy is one of the things that, again, it might be generational. It might be that of our generation, we're okay to talk about getting therapy is not in itself a taboo thing to admit, as it has been in previous generations. And I think that it's not just a bubble that you're in. It's less and less kind of a charged thing to admit.
Mm.
It's probably more charged to say that you go to an astrologer than it is that you go to a therapist.
It's funny when people start referencing you after they reference their therapist. My therapist and my astrologer said
Yeah.
this and that.
I have told that to clients too, like when they like want to make this decision, but they don't know how to do it. And I was like, just tell them your astrologer told you to do it. They're like, okay. Yeah, I don't have to take responsibility for it. My astrologer told me to do it.
Also, I have a client who is in real estate, and they are also selling real estate and buying and so on. And during some specific times, they're like, "Oh, I am their astrologer, and they know when they have to do deals or not, when it's Mercury is retrograde or whatever." But then it's so funny when clients of his come and say the same thing. My astrologer said that I won't be signing this. So you feel seen by your real estate agent also. So it's
That's
a good
funny.
line.
My best friend is a real estate agent, and she always asks me about like when to list, depending on what she's doing, whether she's buying or selling for a client. And she doesn't admit that to her clients for the most part, but has shared like being best friends with an astrologer with a few, and has gotten them astrology readings as like a closing gift or a purchasing gift before. So it's funny, like real estate agents they're open to all sorts of information, whatever is gonna like be best for like getting things flowing. So it's funny that real estate is such a common like worldwide profession, and they use astrology. I'm sure that most real estate agents, at least one person in their orbit is an astrologer, because they know the value of good information.
Absolutely, absolutely.
So let's talk about outside of astrology, because that was something that you and I had talked about. While you spend your free time and you're curious about astrology, not only being in an astrology orbit is vital, because if you're just focused on everything astrology all the time, as an astrological mind, you kind of look at things anyway, like you're trying to
Mm.
glean some sort of meaning of the transits. But you're also probably interested in other things. Can you speak about how self-care also includes like a balanced life where you're not just have like the horse blinders on of just the astrology world? Like what are your thoughts around that?
Mm. Well, I will mention some of the things that happened personally to me. In my experience, is that a lot of people, when they feel seen by the astrologer or feel safe in the space that you provide, depending on their level of psychic, no, psychological development, they might get hatched so to you as a professional who sees their chart, and I had a lot of clients who are really became dependent on astrology,
Uh,
which is also a thing that probably we do in the beginning of our studies. So when you watch all transits and you are worried about anything and you have astrological anxiety about yourself, about your family,
the
and
eclipses, oh my
yeah,
God.
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And they happened in your life many years before, but now when you have the astrological perspective, you're probably dead,
Now I'm doomed.
next
Everyone's
month.
gonna die. Yeah.
Absolutely. So those type of clients who are more, let's say, shaky or in a different and more fragile not competition, but situation in their life. They're more not keen exactly, but they try to ask you for everything that happens in their life. So, because as we mentioned in the beginning, astrology is not like the professions that have a specific working hours. People think that they can ask you stuff all the time.
Yeah.
And I speak from my personal experience. I'm not sure that for every astrologer it's like that. Obviously, I had a problem with boundaries, and that's why I get the situations in my life that test my boundaries. But a lot of people write you at 11 p.m. Asking you when should I get my hair cut, when is the right time for me to talk to this person, and so on, which is things that are just life. You don't need me to elect a specific date exactly for your hairstyle appointment. So this started getting really overwhelming for me, not only with those kind of questions, but in general, a lot of people asking you after 8 p.m. stuff when I devote my time to my family or I just want to rest. And having problems with boundaries also puts you in an unrested position because you wanna answer all the time. You gotta check because if you wanna be really sure that this is a good time, you won't say it just like that, like do it on the 5th of May or something. You will open your program, you will see their chart, you will see the transits of this day,
Yeah.
if it's a waxing or waning moon, and it takes time. And I actually think that psychology and my personal way of dividing my time in the recent years got much better with saying to the people, I cannot answer this question for you. You gotta live your life also. Not everything is the daily transits, and especially if you're not equipped to do it on your own, and you gotta ask another person to do it in their free time or after 5 p.m. in the afternoon or 6 p.m. depending on what is the working time, the common working time in your country. So I started just not answering those questions, even if they're close friends, because it's impossible to spend all your free time. Everybody, at first, are 3 people, then with the growing of your client base, it becomes even more like a heavy task to answer to everybody. And I think this is also connected to social media because it gives the impression that you're online all the time. And you have to find ways just to not respond, just detach from work because it is our job. And we do it between this time and this time. You book this appointment, it is hour and a half. Outside of it, if it's a catch up, if it's something that we decided in during the consultation that you can ask further questions because of something that we are waiting to happen, it's fine. But
Hmm.
asking for that kind of things, I think it's very exhausting. So I had to cut a lot of the things, cutting social media, not looking at my phone after I wake up for 2 or 3 hours, even putting it on airplane mode just so I can not hear it beep or something.
Yeah.
Also, after I pick up my kids from school, I leave my phone in one room, and until they're off to sleep, I'm not touching it unless it's something really important or calling my family and my parents or relatives and so on. And this includes in this time frame, I'm I'm either making appointments with my therapist because I also need to wind down, or I go to a swimming pool because I love swimming, and or I go to a spa center because also we're sitting so much of the time on our desks, and you have back pain, you have some other pain, whatever. So just taking care, going to a massagist because we need this also, and this is our own investment, so we can be really present when we give the consultation to the person.
I think that time limit is so important. And I was listening to the Blind Boy podcast. He's an Irish podcaster, and he just interviews people. And he had it was a neuroscientist, and he studied brains. And he was talking about when the 24-hour news cycle began, there was now no bottom to our accessibility to information. It used to be that, you would have like in the States, it would be like the 11 o'clock news, and then TV would turn off. Like there would just be nothing. And then you had a 24-hour cable news cycle where there was never a bottom to accessing information. And then social media also created that. So you can scroll. And as you scroll, there is no end. You don't ever get to the bottom of your page.
Great.
It's just, it's forever. And the way that our brains respond to that, like we are training our brains in a way that is so dysfunctional to our health. And that then feeds into expecting everyone to be available to us, just like a scrolling a reel on any social media, that there is no limit. And so by being a professional and offering a limit, be like, to not respond to a text or a DM or an email until the next business day. You can put your own email as having office hours so that it just shows up that there's a little moon, what I think is really cute. That's like the do not disturb is like the lunar time. Like I'm
Exactly.
taking care of my body and I'm asleep to this world. But tending to boundaries is not something that is just, you don't set a boundary and then it's there forever. It is constantly tending it. And the more you tend it, the more people expect that boundary to also be there for them. So having those clients that, even after a reading, ask questions, constantly, 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 setting up response times. Like, it sounds like you have a lot that you want to talk about. How about you book another reading and we can cover all of these questions that you've asked. And, just having that, treating yourself like a professional and having those boundaries of what you allow, because you don't allow your children just to interrupt every single time. I mean, they will try, and you say, like, I'm on the phone, or I'm in a meeting, or I'm making dinner, or I'm talking to your dad, whatever it is. Like you set boundaries up for your kids when they just constantly interrupt. We should do that to other adults within the professional life. And it's hard, like we live in a social media environment where we are training our brains that there is no limit, there is no boundary. And so it's our job individually to set those boundaries within our professional life. So I think it's important that you brought that up, because it's something that I've been considering even the last couple of days, of like, what does that actually look like, just in the mechanical sense, the practical sense of having office hours, respecting those office hours, being clear with those. And even if it's just delay in response, like don't respond to that email for a couple of days, instead of just feeling like you have to respond now or else what? Like the world's not going to end if you don't, if, it's like if you give that breathing room between your response, it allows you to have a bit more clear boundary between you and a client, because you will get those people that are attached to you. And then the more that they rely on you to answer those questions, the less they're relying on themselves. So you're actually not
Mm,
helping them anyway.
absolutely not.
Whew.
Well, as you mentioned, giving this space to not answer the email, it looks from the out when you start doing it, and either you've done it for the last year or some people many years. Some people find it very easy to put boundaries
Yeah.
uh, to other people. But if you're not one of those people, even the smallest boundary feels like hell. You feel like you will be perceived as evil, as bad professional, or any other labels that you might get in your head about yourself. Because usually it's not other people, you're just labeling yourself. Because you're scared of putting the boundary for some reason that you gotta dig into and reflect and understand why I'm
Yeah.
not doing this, why I feel that I have to give all the time and I don't deserve. And this is for me, it was one of the most difficult things really in my life. In general, the boundary topics, but you can test it in every field of your life. One time it's professionally, other time is to your kids, colleagues, neighbors, whatever. So it's a step that might feel so, like when you're scared and anxious at the same time, and you feel it in your here between on your chest. I don't know the word in English, sorry, but it's like you're going to throw up any
Mm.
minute now.
Yeah.
It's so bad. So making these small steps, don't reply immediately. Then don't reply for the next hour. And then you extend this boundary next day, working hours, and so on. It's really the way to go. And I couldn't stress more how helpful actually this is for the self-care that we
Yeah.
can do for ourselves.
Yeah. So, can we turn the conversation to money? Because we spend a lot of time, like the amount of time that we spend that we honestly just donate to the cause of our astrological study. We spend so much time. But money's involved. You spend money to go to a school, to support a Patreon, to take a course, to go through a certification process, to pay for therapy, all these things. When it comes to charging for your own services, though, I think a lot of people, that's where their own value really gets disrupted. They don't know what to charge, how to charge, if they should charge, how to even start. And it's on an individual basis, but I think that if you put a lot of effort into it and you value it yourself, then you should charge for your readings. And that's going to look different for everybody, but just how are you able to go from student to charging people for your profession? What did that look like?
I think my case is not very unique to almost everybody else in the astrological community, but um, I think it's connected to uh, really to the value, as you said. How do you value what you invested in? And a lot of the times, I feel that maybe this is my own upbringing, and maybe it's Eastern Europe that everybody else here was so pushing all their kids to study in high schools, the best high schools. The competition is really bad. Then you must go to at least one university because otherwise you're doomed in this life. And this stress on achievements all the time was having an impact on my astrological career later, because I never I maybe this is something that I will feel until the rest of my life, that I'm never learned enough, that I have never learned enough. But also astrology, as you said, it's a rabbit hole. You can go all those ways and paths and still not have learned everything, which is also the good thing that
Yeah.
keeps us alive also. But the point where you say, okay, I really know enough, I've tested enough, I invested enough to start charging, comes with at least for me, it came from my community, because a lot of the people knew that I was very interested. I did some basic readings, as I mentioned, based on the sun sign and the moon sign during my whole life. And when I started charging people, before that, I told to my larger community and friends, okay, guys, I'm doing it really as a career in my life, and I'm starting now. I will study, I will get my certificates, and then you can ask me questions. And because I wanted to test also what I've learned, on people. And at some point, one of my friends said, okay, I want to be the first one to pay you for a reading to my cousin. And I was like, that's
That's
so easy
great.
because I didn't have to ask myself, anybody else.
Yeah.
And actually, even if this was the case, I had to put my own price later on, and it was still hard. But the way I did it was asking all kinds of professionals around me who had a consulting job, no matter the field, like architecture, because from my high school and university, I know a lot of the people in the building and architectural industry. And I asked them, if somebody comes with a question about their living room, they have to do a renovation, but they want to ask something specific. How much do you charge? And they told me, I charge $50 per hour for a for example. And I started collecting that information, and I said to myself, okay, you're early in your studies, have so much work to do from now on. You gotta start 1/3 of the normal price of whatever everybody else told you. So I started charging like very small amounts of money, sometimes didn't charge, depending if it was a charge that was very difficult for me and I was not sure what kind of response I will give to the person. I also didn't charge because I felt that I'm not prepared to charge that person even the smallest amount of money.
Yeah.
But I think it took me probably 5 years on those like back and forth of I'm charging, I'm not charging, do you want to do it? And people nowadays still ask me, are you doing this professionally?
Yeah.
I'm like, yes, I have a whole website. You can check it out.
Yeah. 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 I
And
think just
how
having
did
that
you do it?
nuance, I think having that nuance of getting over the ask of like, I value it and I want you to value it, and I have to put a price tag on that.
Mm,
Starting, I think of it as concentric circles. You're starting with the trusted friend group and doing readings for free in order for feedback. Like that is an exchange, right? And
yeah.
and then going beyond and asking for donations, like whatever you want to pay me, it's fine,
Mm,
$20. And then starting to set prices that it gets easier the longer you do it, but it's just making that first attempt, I think is difficult. And it just makes you evaluate, like, how am I going to ask other people to value it in the same way I do? And it's just kind of something you just have to do. You can't plan
no
your way out
skipping.
of it. Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's just like reading charts for other people. You can study. I know so many astrologers that have studied for a very long time, and they are excellent astrologers, and they can't make the leap to read for other people. And it just may not be what they need to do. You don't have to be a consulting astrologer. There's so many other ways to be an astrologer, but it's a really difficult thing. It's like riding a bike or learning how to ski. It's like you have to just do it. Like you can be prepared, you can have all of everyone's tips, but unless your body goes through those motions itself, it's just kind of like you just the best piece of advice I got was from a tutor, and she just said, start before you're ready. And I was like, that's
Mm,
terrifying.
it's
But she was
scary.
right. It was right, you know?
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. A lot of the times, I think that people are the more you learn, you get more scared because you just know how much you don't know,
yeah, yeah.
and it's getting scarier with time because you also with social media, as you said, you're scrolling down and you see a lot of people doing ads or making courses or doing readings, and I sometimes know those people, that come up in my feed, and I know that they've been doing this for the last 2 years of their life, and I've been doing it for 20. So they already charge a lot of money for what they know, and I think this is not that I'm anybody who can judge. Of course, if there is somebody to pay you this amount, this is an open market. Everybody can do whatever they want. It's just my internal feeling of I should do it now, or it will be even more difficult later now to make this switch. And as you mentioned, a lot of the astrologers, they don't need to be consulting astrologers,
Mhm.
but if you do it in any other way, if you're a researcher in astrology, if you write articles for magazines, you also have to put your price on your working hours.
Yeah.
So they will go to this point nevertheless, even if they don't meet clients,
Yeah.
so it's for everybody in the field, it's a time consuming and it's a real job. And it's a job that gives so much added value to everybody who is using it, because this is another layer of self-knowledge that not everybody else can give you.
Hmm.
Even if you're not one of those people who spend time in solitude, in self-discovery, and who gets this luxury nowadays, we are just helping everybody to get to the next step
Mm.
more easily, with support and with love and with care. And this is so much more than just a normal conversation.
Yeah.
It's giving them the strength to continue, to feel supported, to feel that everything is in the right place because the universe has a general plan,
Hmm.
an urban plan for your life.
Yeah, I mean, speaking to the that forever student, like the more you learn, that like you can become more scared because then you realize there's so many more techniques and philosophies and perspectives and all of this that I don't know yet. But if you consider most people coming to an astrology reading, they might be impressed by your wealth of knowledge, but what's it going to help them if you can't provide just something basic that they can grasp onto? So I read tarot for people too. And usually people, they will remember one, maybe two cards from the whole reading. Now, if I do a recording, they have the whole recording, but when they walk away from a reading, they're going to just remember a few basic key things. And so like yourself, I started with modern astrology because that was kind of what was available in the 90s. And then I was introduced to traditional techniques and Hellenistic astrology much later on. And the simplified entry point, it is as complicated as ever, but the simplified way of thinking about the signs holding an equal section of the sky, just that simplification of a whole sign house system helped me then deliver simplified but still very meaningful readings to people. Having really, you can have all the techniques in your mind. You can be looking at the circumambulation of the bounds, but a client does not know what you were talking about unless they are also studying astrology. So you're just going to talk to them about the themes of a house or the basics of a planet and what planet is going to help them out and what planet's going to provide the most challenge. So the more techniques that you have, you still need to deliver a compliant reading. The client needs to be able to not just walk away feeling like their brain is fried from all of the
Mm,
techniques or the language that they've never heard
mm,
before. That's not helpful. It might be good for your ego. It might feel like you gave them all the information and you're like, yep, that was a great reading. But they walk away and they're like, I don't remember anything because I'm just so overwhelmed by this. So providing them some sort of functional simplification of their chart is the most helpful thing to them. The other thing I wanted to say is that while a lot of the astrological world is now online, we also live in different cities that have different costs of living. And so if you live in an expensive city, you might be reading for people all over your country or all over your hemisphere or all over the world, but you still have to pay, you have to still have to live in your own city. So that's going to change what you charge, as opposed to if you live in a cheaper city than your astrology cohort or colleague that you only see on social media. So that's something to consider. If you live in San Francisco in the States, it's an extremely expensive city to live in, as opposed to if you lived in St. Louis, Missouri, it's way more
mm,
affordable. You're not going to charge the same thing. And your clients will also, if you live in San Francisco, while you might read for a lot of people all over the world, you're probably also going to read for people that live in San Francisco that also afford to live there, that are going to have that. So that's just something to consider. And it was something that took me a while because I was like, wow, they're charging so much more for their readings than I am. Am I undervaluing myself, or are they overvaluing themselves? Like I had to kind of reconcile that. And it's like, no, their cost of living is way higher than mine. And it's not something that I considered up until that point. Now I feel very confident in what I charge, and I will probably increase it in the next year or two. But I'm good where it is now, and I feel confident in that. And so I don't have that question. But it took me a long time to feel confident in this layer. And if you can get over just the that first hurdle of charging people, asking them to share value, that exchange is so important. Otherwise, they will take advantage of you. If you give it away for free, then they won't value it at all because it was free. So,
Yeah.
but having that exchange begins the relationship of value for the client, and then they will share that. And that also has to do with your own boundaries too, not giving it away for free, and offering it to people who need it. The other question I was going to have, do you have a
May I
sliding
just
scale?
mention,
Yeah,
uh,
yeah.
I just wanted to underpin what you said because this is such a great point of view that not a lot of people ask the question to themselves when they want to book a reading with a professional astrologer, because as you mentioned, all the astrology field is mainly online, and you can book a reading with somebody in India or with us in Australia or in San Francisco or St. Louis, but this is going to have a very different price range, but also having the idea that you're paying a lot doesn't mean, as you said, that this is a very seasoned astrologer, but also paying less doesn't mean that this person is not skilled enough.
Yeah.
So having, if you see somebody's prices who lives in a very affordable place on the planet, and you see that the rates are lower than most of the other astrologers, what signal are you sending to the client? Because I want to keep my prices affordable for the also people that live in Bulgaria, because this is my main audience. And I know that for people who live abroad, it might look cheap, or maybe they will think that I'm not skilled enough
Right.
because my prices are low, for example, let's say. And then the other way around. So this is a great point that you're having. Not a lot of people think about it. I just wanted to say.
Well, so within that, like, do you have like a sliding scale or affordable price, or a nuance? Like, how do you, if you have a set price, like, are you a hard stickler for that? Or do you also trade with people within your own community, the value of a reading for like a massage, for instance?
I definitely do that. Also, I'm a firm believer that a capitalist lifestyle made us really not appreciate how we spend our money and what we give it out for. And even if the prices for the things I exchange are not similar, I'm absolutely open to do any kind of exchange. I do it because as I said, I live in a small town. We almost all know each other. You know, who is your doctor, who is your dentist, and they're a friend of yours. And, you know, it's a community thing and it's really nice. And we exchange a lot. Also, the other thing that I love about the connection with the clients is I always give discounts for recurring consultations. I have also my Patreon where I have like it's a video recording of the transits twice a month, and people who are subscribed to my Patreon, they receive all kinds of reduced price for consultations for my magic shop and everything else. Also, I have a donation practice based on my own devotional practice, not only my personal remediation practice, but in general, I always love to share what I know with people, and I do free lectures or give out consultation. If I see that somebody is struggling, I will never ask for money. It's just like I know that this will come back to me someday. Maybe not, whatever. I just feel it's okay to do it because we are people. Everybody struggles at some point in their life, or hopefully not, but unfortunately, the world
Yeah.
doesn't look like that now.
Yeah.
So I'm really open to anything
Well,
to support others.
yeah, I mean, that brings us to your practice. So, you're based in Bulgaria, but you read, do you read locally in person, or all your readings online?
I usually read online, even if the people live in my hometown,
Mm-hmm.
just because I record the
Yeah.
consultation, and I prefer that they have it as a recording so they can go back to it and re-listen. As you said, it's very overwhelming, even if you talk in a not technical language. You
Mm-hmm.
know, usually it's a lot of stuff. They overhear something or don't hear particular
Yeah.
parts just because you're in a specific time frame of your life and you have this pressing question now, but 3 months from now you will have something else. And when
Mm-hmm.
you go back to the recording and you listen to that, oh my God, I totally missed this that
Yep.
you told me. So I think it's very useful, this technological shift that we made. But I also do live depending on the person, you know. A lot of the people that we go for a drink and we have this small astro community, we just chat about it. And if
Mm.
there are people who are not into astrology, we love to give just readings to them. So it's
Yeah.
an open thing.
So on your website, it's mokusoastrology.com, Mokuso astrology.com. And let me see if I can open this up. It defaults to your native language, but then you can turn it
Yes,
into English. And you have, is it chart rectification services that you offer?
yes,
And then
yes.
tell me about the rest of your page here.
Oh, well, I have different kind of combinations just because people sometimes only want a natal reading, others so want, because I'm also trained in remediation through Austin, and some people only just, I have clients who know their natal chart.
Mm-hmm.
I've read for them or other astrologers read for them. So I do rectification, remediation, prognostication, or the combination of all of those things. Electional charts, also horary questions, and I have gift cards in if you want to give a to somebody else for a
Mm-hmm.
present. And usually I say the same thing. I must know that the person is really open for this present
Yeah.
because otherwise it's really difficult.
Yeah. Yeah, I started to just put that in the fine print. Like if they don't redeem it in 90 days, then you just get it. And
Yeah,
that way it's not lost. And I don't
yeah,
have this
great tactics.
lingering thing that maybe at some point this person will get in touch.
Yeah.
Just to retain that energy a little bit more.
It's also time management, which is self-care.
Mm-hmm. Yep, yep. So you have a Patreon here, and
Yes.
you're on Twitter and Instagram. I'm going to open up your Patreon page if that
My
works.
Patreon page is only in Bulgarian, so
Okay.
unfortunately, it's very difficult for me to record videos both in Bulgarian and in English. But recently, we had very important political elections in Bulgaria. So
Mm,
the blue thing on the right is actually I use Dr. Olomi's mundane techniques for several years now, and finally I got the guts to record with another mundane astrologer just
yeah.
an analysis of the elections and of the ingress of the sun into Aries. So it was a fun project that we did, but
Yeah.
for your listeners, unless they speak Bulgarian, it's gonna be really difficult.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I love all your work, and you have just like a really open and styled spirit. You and I have only met one other time on Zoom, but it's been really lovely to just connect with you and hear more about your practice and just to have this conversation. I also screwed up our recording last week. I had double booked, and you were incredibly graceful for that. So I'm glad that we were able to record today. But again, thanks for your time and your grace and sharing your practice and sharing a bit about your story. Before we wrap up, is there anything that you wanted to kind of add just in the self-care topic or just for today in general?
Hey, I just wanted to say thank you for taking my approach to you. No, this writing you under your post, and it's really difficult to have these conversations with Bulgarian astrologers, mostly because of the conditions that I mentioned you before. But I'm really grateful, really, for inviting me and for giving me the opportunity to share my work and my opinions.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. All right. Well, thanks everybody for listening. Thanks, Mariya, for spending the time here. And you can, I'll put your website in the show notes and all the links to your socials, even the Patreon, because we might have some other Bulgarian speakers here. But thanks everybody for listening, and we'll catch you next time.
Thank you.